Hi guys, welcome back to Just Talking, where I talk at you and you sometimes listen. Today we're reviewing, in my opinion, the best theme park in the UK, otherwise known as Blackpool Pleasure Beach. This park is currently at its 125th year of opening and is, in my opinion, one of the most diverse and historical parks in the UK. I'd probably say second to maybe Alton Towers, but it depends on your viewpoint. And I've been to this park from the 2011 season to 2021 season, every year without fail. So for some details about it, it is in the northwest coast of England in Blackpool, and the park is situated on the front of the whole entire place and really does tower above the town, and it's pretty easy to get into, and there's a lot of things around it too. There's a lot of arcades, there's obviously the Blackpool Tower, there's a lot of different piers to go to, and there's a wealth of hotel options and restaurants outside of the park as well. And the park is 1.830 million square feet, and that's purely of all of its services, rides, and everything else. And that does include the car park, which does cost £15 a day to park in, but there are cheaper options around Blackpool that you can actually park in, and you do, I believe, get free parking for one of the two hotels that are there. And there are over 40 different rides and attractions that are counted quickly. Some people claim there's over 125, some people claim there's 85, but for the sort of main attractions, I'd say there's about 40 really important ones, and then there's some side attractions and events that take place, such as this year there's Walk the Woody, Walk the Big One, there's Fawlty Towers dining experiences, the Halloween like Freak Nights and Journey to Hell Nights, which through the day are quite family friendly, but on a night they do the horror mazes now. And also the Murder Mystery Alice in Wonderland experience, which they will be doing for Halloween. So the wristband entry is £35 for adults, which is aged 12 plus, and £30 for anyone younger, so 11 and under. And this has changed a little bit over the years. Sometimes they do weekend sort of deals where it'd be £15 for a wristband, because a lot of kids want to go after school in Blackpool, and of course across the country there's different school closure times in relation to the school holidays, so they sometimes do some pretty good offers on that. But to say there's all the rides that are there, it's definitely worth the price, unlike some theme parks which charge for a low ride sort of selection, and the Pleasure Beach rarely has any rides shut. The only one that really does close is a big one in case of high winds, because it is 235 feet. And the two hotels are on site, and I'll discuss them later. So for the thrill ride selection, I think this is probably one of the most acceptable ones, because it allows for small thrills and big thrills, and also ambitious rides as well. So my personal favourite is actually Icon. It's the UK's first double launch coaster, and it features two launches, of course, and can reach speeds of about 50 miles an hour. And it's got similar speeds to Velocity at Flamingo Land. And it features a top hat element after the first launch, which basically tips you a little bit back and gives you the effect of lifting out your seat. It has a sort of sideways loop-de-loop, which doesn't send you upside down or anything, don't worry about it. It's like a weird inverse helix. It offers a series of bends and turns, a zero-G roll, and an Immelman loop, and it is really thrilling and very forceful, and I see a lot of kids going on it, and I'd say if you are bringing kids to the park, this might not be a good one for the first, because it's very forceful and it will leave them very giddy with adrenaline, because you're flying out your seat, there's lots of gravity pushing on you, and it can make you a bit dizzy if you start to look around things, and if your ears pop, don't try to unpop them, because I did that and it hurt. But it is a really good ride as well. And not to mention it has a good merch selection as well for it. I have a hoodie and it's all nice sort of Japanese cherry blossoms, and that's how the ride is themed. Then you have Revolution, which is kind of you could say a double launch coaster if you really wanted. And basically the train is propelled forward and you go down a little drop, into a loop de loop, back up. You get held in the second part of the ride, which is about this is the entrance, I believe, and back here is where it holds you, and then it'll push you back, backwards into loop and back into the station. I believe half of the train is facing backwards unless they've changed that. But depending on which way you want to be going backwards and which way you're going to be forwards, then you can choose your place, because really with how the train's structured, it doesn't really change your experience too much apart from your direction. Then you have the big one. They claim it's 265 feet, but that's above sea level. Its actual height is about 235, 236, which is still incredibly high. And when it was built in, I think, 1996, it was the tallest in the world and also the fastest. It reaches 85 miles an hour, but only experiences, the first sort of drop where you go at a 65-degree angle down, and then a few sort of jumps and bunny hops. There's about two helixes, I'd say. There's the smaller one, and then there's what I would consider, the over embanked turn. So there's not really two, but if you want to consider that, then you do you. But I really like this coaster. It's not the most thrilling for me because I suppose I've built up some sort of immunity to those sorts of things. But you do get some really nice views, and I'd say if you are taking kids there and your child is tall enough, then they can definitely go on this one. It's not the most intense one where they're going upside down and they're experiencing a lot of things, because it would be quite impressive to say first coaster was that. It might be a bit ambitious, but it's definitely okay for younger kids, I'd say. But if you're an adult, it's really nice, it's thrilling. Sometimes, depending on where your seat is, it can be a bit rough, but they are in the process of retracking almost all of the coaster, so it will become a lot smoother in the future. But I do really enjoy this. I've only really been on it once or twice, but I think definitely, given that there is sort of some restrictions and things still, due to everything that's going on in the world, you know, there's a lot shorter queue lines based on which day you go on and how you structure around the Blackpool school holidays. Um, so it's not like it's got hour-long queue lines, so you can get on it multiple times in a day. And with Icon, it's best to get in, I would say, at the start, because on every time I've been, it always gets incredibly busy on the afternoon for whatever reason. I think it's because at the start of the day it's running slightly slower than it does on the afternoon, but I'm not too sure how to structure it. Then there's Grand National, which is a Mobius loop coaster, and it's a wooden coaster, which basically means it's on one big track, but it stops at two stations. So technically, it's each go round is half of the full circuit, because there's two trains running on one big circuit, but they do stop at two different stations. So it is a racing wooden coaster. It's quite rough, so if you do have back issues or anything, it's not the best to go on, but it is very good. I really enjoy it. It does fresh you around quite a bit, so I'd maybe only go on it once or twice if you want to experience both sides. But it's a really fun woody with a lot of airtime, and suggesting that it was built in around the 1920s, it is a very good coaster to go on. It was about the 1920s or 30s, and it really does make use of some really good elements, like the little bunny hops at the end, and it is a very good thrill ride. And I would say that younger kids could go on it because they have quite a big immunity to being thrashed around, and if they've been to Nickelodeon Land, which I'll discuss in a minute, they'll be okay with being thrashed around on a woody and things. So it's not like the most horrendous thing on planet Earth. It might be for some more middle-aged people, but I would definitely say give this a ride. I really do like it, and I think it does fit quite well with the theme of horse racing, because the jumps are short and they give you a lot of airtime and the thrilling, and it's intense, and you're racing against another coaster, and it's hard to, not be competitive when you're put against other British people. But then there's Big Dipper, which is, I would say, the sort of little sibling of Grand National. It's a single tracked Woody, and I think this was built in the 1930s. And basically, this just goes on the few sort of hops and jumps, and it does go over a bridge by the Burger King, and that's always nice to be able to look to the side if you can ever remember and see people wave at them. And it also does have the interaction with the big one. um it can be a bit flashy, but I've noticed lately they've done a few retrack jobs, and it does make it a lot smoother. And this was, I believe, the first coaster to ever have an upstop wheel, which basically means that it can have more ambitious, sort of jumps and get to bigger heights and things, because it has the wheel that stops it from flying off. So this is a very impressive coaster, and I really do quite like it, and the way it weaves in and out of all the different rides, and you have the interactions with things like, I think, a little bit of Icon, you have the Pleasure Beach Express, you have a bit under Steeplechase, and then the big one. Here you have Nick Streak, which is located in Nickelodeon Land. This is the third and final, no, the third Woody. There's another Woody that I'll explain in a minute. And basically it takes you around sort of the top half outskirts of the park. And I do really like this one. It's of course a lot tamer for younger kids, and it can be a bit daunting seeing the chain lift being so high, but it goes only about half of that height, and it does make use of some really nice embankments and things, and I think that it's appropriate for all ages to go on, and it's not the roughest of all things, and it does have cushion seats, so it's not exactly the worst thing in the world. And I would say that if you can get there early, then go on it, because this ride is a devil for queues. It really does like to have massive long queues, because of course it's in Nickelodeon Land, and it's like the staple ride of the area. It was originally called Roller Coaster when it opened, around a similar time, around 1930s. And it does get really popular. It always has been a popular ride. And sometimes I've queued up for it for an hour and like 3/4. So yeah. It is a very enjoyable ride. I would definitely say go on it. It's not as white knuckle as Grand National, which you can actually see in the background of it, or Big Dipper, but it is very fun for everyone. Then you have Avalanche right here. This is a bobsled coaster, and it goes through a series of elements such as the snake and I believe the cyclone. And this is kind of in a Swiss themed area, and it showcases a Blackpool themed bobsled in its station, and I really like the theming of the ride. It's got force on it, because of course the whole train is held in by force, and it just rolls around. And it's really fun. I would say, definitely, if you come in as a couple, I would say that you should go in your own separate one, because if you try to fit two people on, it can really dig into like your crotch area and your waist. So unless you've got kids with you, I would say go by yourself, because when you go down the sort of first main drop into, I believe, the snake element, it digs in, and it can hurt a bit if you get the positioning wrong, because it can dig into your rib cage. But it is really fun and really enjoyable, and you get some funny pictures out of it, because when the pressure's pushing on your face, if you try to smile, it kind of looks a bit weird. But you do also have Steeplechase, which is a horse racing roller coaster. It's not like big drops or anything. It's just a few little hurdles and jumps, and the horse tilts, and it, you can lean in, and it feels like you're riding a horse and things. And that's a good family ride, but it does get quite low queues. I would say around lunchtime or at about 1 o'clock. But it's really variable on what day you go, because like after your lunch, if you've been to Burger King, it's right there, it's convenient to go on, so a lot of people will queue up. But I do still really like steeplechase. People complain about it, but it is quite a skinny ride. I suppose they could always build another coaster around it. But I do quite enjoy the ride as well. And then there is also Infusion, which is an inverted coaster where you sit beneath the track and you have a restraint on, and it has a few inversions in it where you go upside down and all that, but it's painful. I would say go on it once for the novelty of saying that you've been on Infusion, but I would say there's a high chance you'll break your neck unless you watch like a video explaining how to sit, because you can sit with your head pressed firmly against it or your head pressed against one side, but depending on who you are, that will or won't work. So it really just depends. It's got the thrill elements, it's got the water effects and everything, and it's a very visually appealing ride in some essence, but a lot of people do pick up some sorts of knock or bruise, but it really can depend on where you sat. So if you are going to go on it, I'd watch a video on your placement on the train or how to sit properly, because if you sit wrong, you can actually hit your head pretty bad. And I suppose that's it really for the thrill rides. In Nickelodeon Land, you do have about 12, I'd say, rides. And it features the main sort of staple characters from some Nicktoons, I suppose. You have the Avatar Airbender, which is similar to Navigator at Flamingo Land, and it basically spins you around on a track going from one side to the other, and it's this beauty right here. It's very fun, and because the actual train itself is spinning on the track, and when your seat turns around and you're facing the top of one of these spikes here, it kind of looks like you're gonna fall back, and it feels like you're falling, and it's very fun. And I would say this is more for tweens and teens really, than kids, because it can towards the end get you a little bit dizzy and a bit miserable, but I think it's quite fun, and it's meant to be thrilling, and of course it's from the popular like anime cartoon show Avatar, so kids probably won't associate with it as much as tweens and teens. You have the Fairly Odd Parents sort of fairy taxi ride, which is similar to the sort of Dumbo ride and the sort of ones where you press a button and it'll lift your taxi, what you're sat in, up, and then when you release it, it'll send you down. And if you get it right on the corners, you'll be pushed against the side and it'll kind of weight you down a bit, and it can be quite entertaining. Of course, Nickelodeon Land is centered around kids, so don't expect like the biggest thrills. You do have over here the Diego's Rainforest Rescue, which is basically where you sat on a little parachute thing, like a hot air balloon, and there's a little circle of metal in the middle, and when you spin that, the whole air balloon will spin around, and it takes you to the top, and the whole thing is spinning, so you can spin on top of spinning, and it'll show you all around the Nickelodeon Land area, and then it'll lower you back down, and you get off. You then have the Nickelodeon shop here, which is displayed in more detail here, and it sells a lot of Nickelodeon merch, especially SpongeBob, as you can see right here. They do have some Paw Patrol merch, because they do now have a Paw Patrol meet and greet. It has a lot of the newer cartoon things in there as well as the already existing characters that are shown in the land. You then have the Rugrats Lost River ride, which is a small log flume that gets you very wet. I went on it and I felt like my toes had frostbite because I underestimated the temperature. I was very hot and it cooled me down, but it does get you quite wet, so I would recommend buying a poncho if you want to go on this on a more colder day, or a day where you wouldn't really want to get really wet. But it really depends. I really do like this ride. It's very fun, and it's very nice to see the crowd that gathers there, because you'll find that whenever you go, there'll be a crowd gathered around this sort of area, and people will watch you get wet, and you can watch other people get wet there too. Another water ride is is like a sort of water battle ride where you go around on like little, is it shells or something? You basically go around on this little car and it turns you around in these different areas, and you have water guns that you squirt at other people. This is great for a hot day because depending on how many people are on there, you'll get moderately wet, and it's very fun, and other people can also squirt you, and it's just a great ride. And you can also squirt people who stood by. If they're squirting you and you get it at a perfect angle, you can definitely hit someone who's trying to get you wet from outside the ride. You then have the Dora the Explorer World Voyage ride, which takes you around the world on a voyage, and you basically see different animals and different landmarks and things. So that's educational. You here have the Blue Flyer, which is the fourth and final Woody at the Pleasure Beach, and it features, I think, 2 drops. Very small, and it's very good for younger kids and for a first roller coaster, in my opinion. Um, Here is the Backyardigans sort of pirate ride, and of course this has picked up some more popularity with the Backyardigans being sort of viral at this point. So maybe go check it out. It basically is your standard pirate ride where you sat on a little ship and it sends you up and down, around and round, and then it comes to a stop and everyone's like, "Oh, we're gonna get out," and then it starts spinning you backwards, and it's fun. It's a little bit fast, and you feel gravity and things, so it's entertaining nevertheless. You then have the Bikini Bottom bus tour, which is always relatively popular, and it basically just puts you on a bus and it kind of goes round and round. It's not like a thrill ride or anything. It's just kind of like a thing where you sit on and you relax and you look at Nickelodeon Land. And then the Krusty Krab Order Up Drop Tower, which is just small. It sends you up and down just on little sort of little bounces, and it's fun. It's got the gravity, and I suppose it's nice to introduce kids to what will be bigger thrill rides in the future and not to scare them a bit. So young kids can definitely go to the Pleasure Beach, not only because of this, but because of the dark ride selection. And these are available to open before May 17th because they do have outdoor sections to them. And I love these. I think these are the best in the UK. This is a ghost train which claims to be the first ghost train ever, and this was built in 1930 and was originally a one-deck pretzel ride until in 1936 it was redesigned to be 2-deck. And it was originally near the place where Wild Mouse was until it was deconstructed in 2017, and it was moved to here, and its layout hasn't really changed since then. But this is perfect for anyone. I'd say 6-year-olds would be alright. It'd be a bit scary in parts because there's some dark bits where you can't see anything, and the second part of the ride, which is through this door and down here, features some of the old things from Trauma Towers, which might be a bit scarier because they're a bit louder and a bit, more sort of mainstream. Like you have things with Dracula, and I think there's a bit from The Exorcist. But it's very tame. It features a lot of ultraviolet effects, and it's very, very tame, but also it has really nice charm to it. And it is very well structured, and they do update it pretty regularly. They give it repaints, and the effects are working better than ever, in my opinion. And there's just that little drop in the middle, which doesn't give you any sort of, ooh, scary kind of thing. It's just like a nice blast of wind in your face, and I think it's a great and appropriate ride for anyone to go on. I wouldn't say there's any issue with it being too scary or anything. But you do have to be able to walk to the ride to be able to go on it, and you have to be accompanied with an adult until about 175, 124 centimeters. I can't remember the exact one. Then you have the Wallace and Gromit Thrill-O-Matic, which is in the place of the old gold mine, which was deconstructed in, I believe, 2010, 2009 time. It was opening about 2011, 2012 time. And basically it takes you on the journey of basically every single Wallace and Gromit film you can imagine, and you basically sit in a slipper and you go around and you see all these little animatronics that basically recite scenes from the different films, such as A Matter of Love and Death, A Close Shave, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and A Grand Day Out. And I suppose if you do really like Wallace and Gromit, this is great because on this side here, it does have the gift shop, which includes merchandise for things like Fluffy the dog, Feathers McGraw, Shaun the sheep, Wallace, Gromit, just about any character that you could possibly want to have merchandise for. And there aren't really any thrilling elements. It's got the same track as Goldmine, so it doesn't have any drops, but it has some bits where it increases the speed, and because you're in the dark and it blows wind on your face, it gives you the effect that you're moving faster than you are. And I'd say any age can go on this. I do believe this does have the similar rule that you have to be able to walk up to the ride to be able to go on it. And I think it does have an actual height restriction to actually go on it in the first place, because you do have to wear a restraint because of some of the downward elements that can kind of push you forward in your seat a little bit. So that's just the only thing with that. You then have the Alice in Wonderland ride, which people are very mixed up on how the history is because there's not very much documentation on it, but this basically takes you through the classic story of Alice in Wonderland, and I believe it's very mainly based on the animated original version by Disney. And this features a lot of UV effects, as the ghost train does, and it's just got a lot of charm. It's got the smells. By the way, the smells are not natural. The smells are pumped into the ride. And it basically just takes you on a nice, calm journey with I've Got a Golden Ticket playing in the background, which is believed to be part of the original soundtrack for the Alice in Wonderland animated film, but no one's quite sure if that's true. And it does have a few flashing lights at the start, and there's not got anything frightening in it. It's just got the sort of story of when Alice goes down the rabbit hole, when Alice goes to Mad Hatter's tea party, the deck of cards, Queen of Hearts, the caterpillar. It's got all the recognizable elements to it, and even if you don't know the story, it's just nice to look at. And I think it's got a lot of charm and a lot of character to it, and I could just go on it round and round because it's just got a vibe to it. I really like it. And then you have the River Caves. This is just a charmer. This basically does a better job of what the Dora and World Voyage does. And it basically takes you on a journey around the world. And as you can see there's that little drop. It doesn't get you wet. I got a little bit wet when I went at the start of the 125th season this year. But it was only a little speckle on the top of my head, and it was very warm, so I was very grateful for that little speckle of water. But basically you go in through the Tunnel of Love, which I believe was based on a joke that was popular on either Coronation Street or Emmerdale at the time, but I'm not too sure. And you end up in, I believe, Japan or China. And you basically see the Emperor, and there's grand music, and there's a symbol, and there's all these animatronics. And then you're in the prehistoric era, and you're in this sort of underwater looking cave, and you see, sort of, I believe, you see cave people and a triceratops, those are the most recognizable ones. And then you see like a plesiosaur or something. It probably doesn't matter too much to people, and there's some unrecognizable ones which I believe to be a T-Rex. But there's some nice waterfall effects that they've kind of renewed for this season, and they've kind of fixed it up and repainted. And you have the nice little new fire effect in there that isn't real fire. And that might be a bit intimidating. I like it. It gives me a little bit of a weird vibe, but I like the old weird vibe of it. Not for people who do have some mechanophobia, because they are underwater partially and are touching water. But then you go into the underwater section, which is actually underwater. But you see sort of sharks and jellyfish and fish, and there is holographic jellyfish in there, which are very cool to look at. They don't pick up well on a camera, so if you look at like any sort of POV of it, it looks a bit weird. But when you're actually there, it looks really nice. And it does give you the effect that you're underwater because they have some really nice lighting in there. And then you go into the sort of stalactite polar caves, where there's some really calming music that's playing, and that was previously when the gold mine was there, when there was a Magnolia Cafe, and it had all the big sort of stalactites extending from a really high roof, and it looked really nice. But I do really like this section still because it's got calming music and it's got the stars and everything. And then you're in the Egyptians, where you get to see all the big sort of statues, and you see some mummies and stuff, and you see part of the River Nile. And then you're in, I suppose. Oh, I forgot completely. After the dinosaur section, there is the sort of Aztec, sort of Mayan sort of section where you see a bit of a jungle. But then after this bit, you go into Angkor Wat, which is a sort of ancient temple, and you see some monkeys and some elephants and snakes and all kinds of different statues and historical landmark sort of thing. And then you come out of this little hole, go down a dinky little drop that doesn't really get you wet, and then you're back in. And it's just a really nice calming ride, and it's got charm. It's just got bucket loads of charm, and also do strategically place your party around the boat, because if you have some heavier people, if you do put them on the wrong side, it will feel like the boat is going to capsize at all times. So listen to the person who's ushering you onto the boat, because they'll be able to tell you best where to sit. Because if you get it wrong, it'll feel like you're going to die at every single second of the ride, and it's not a nice feeling. For the restaurant side of things, you have the Burger King, which is by the entrance to the Boulevard Hotel. You get nice views of Icon, Steeplechase, the Big Dipper, and the Big One. And it, of course, offers the full Burger King menu, and there's indoor seating on both floors. I believe there's a small soft play section that was closed because of, everything. And, there's the outdoor seating area in case it's warm, and also in case you're not allowed in at any point. But yeah, there's a nice bit of seating there, there's nice views and everything. You then have the Coasters restaurant, which is located at the back of the Icon station, so you get nice views of that and various other things. And this serves you more classier food because it's more of a sit-in place, like burgers and pizza. Basically just generic theme park food. And it's just a nice way to sit in, and it's near Avalanche and Nickelodeon Land, so you can always go between them. And it's also near the bridge by Big Dipper, which extends off by River Caves. You do then have Big Pizza, which is a pizza restaurant, and it's in Nickelodeon Land, so if you have kids, you can stay in there all day long, because you can just go get a nice pizza. There's kids pizzas, there's always a child-friendly option, and you can share one, and it's got nice seating inside and out. And you also can look at Revolution and the Avatar Airbender, so it's not a bad area. For the accommodation, there's 2 different hotels that are on site, but there are also some pretty cheap and also some pretty luxurious hotels that are around Blackpool and on the outskirts of it. I've been to quite a few different hotels, including the sort of village hotel that is there and things, which is very nice. But the Big Blue is the first hotel that was built on the site, and this is just your generic hotel. It's got rooms for just adults, where it's got a double bed or twin beds, and also suites. But it does also have kids' rooms, which do have a little alcove for the kids, where you do have a metal bunk bed, which you can choose to upgrade to 6 feet bunk beds, depending on how tall they are. 2 separate TVs. You can rent video games, but I believe that a lot of the consoles are now broken because people aren't very nice sometimes. And also a Snakes and Ladders game there as well. And of course, TV is provided free. Some rooms do provide pay to rent films and the like. But you know, they're very nice, they're very homey, and they feel a bit more vintage now because they're from quite a while back, and I like that feel of it. It's got the very nice warm lighting, and the food is very nice. It's got a nice spread for breakfast, and it's got the nice selection of food for dinner time as well, in case you don't want to, like go too far from the park. But along the front there is a Pizza Hut if you want to go there. Not too far from the Boulevard Hotel, and there's a wide variety of things in the centre of Blackpool, like Harry Ramsden's, KFC, McDonald's, Pizza Express, another Pizza Hut, I believe. There's a variety of fish and chip restaurants, and also Asian and Chinese restaurants too, as well as Indian restaurants as well. But these tend to be the cheaper price ones out of the two, and you do, of course, have the option to pay additional for the guaranteed coastal or park view sort of rooms. This is a Boulevard Hotel. I believe it was finished construction in about 2018, 2019 time. And this is a more expensive luxury hotel, and it does feature, I believe, 2 adult-only floors, unless it's just the top one. And this does have the dearer price tag on it. It does provide the kids' rooms where you have your own TV, but it's built into the bunk, so when you lay down, you look straight ahead and it's there, and there's lights on the bunks, and the rooms don't come with the normal snakes and ladders, but you can optionally get a package that does include a teddy bear if you want. But it does come with all your kids' channels and things for the majority, really. Not like your big bucks sort of kids' TV channels like Nickelodeon and things, because I believe you can pay extra, but I'm not too sure. And then you have, the big sort of suites, executive suites, which are on adult-only floors, and they are beautiful. They have their own separate living room and fireplace and everything. And I believe you can hire them as bridal suites as well, which, if that tickles your fancy, then get booking. It, does have the dearer price tag, but it looks very sleek. It has some beautiful pictures of Sahara Maxim's flying machine ride, which is by Valhalla, which is currently closed for refurbishment for its 20th anniversary, which will be reopening in 2022, hopefully. And it has very nice restaurant choices too, and a bar and nice things in there as well. And I did enjoy my experience, apart from the occasional banging of kids running around the floor above me or the corridor. I would say this is not the sort of place you'd want to be taking kids, not just because of the price tag, but because it tends to be more formal, and if like you sat in the bar or like you sat in the restaurant, it can be a little bit polarizing if you're younger, because I saw some flat faces that were thinking, where's some of the loud, vibrant atmosphere, because there does tend to be a lot less families in there, because it is expensive. And I would say that go to the Big Blue, because you are more likely to get a nice park view at the Big Blue, because the Boulevard does, only offer a certain view, and it does pretty much rely on chance, right? For the Big Blue more so than the Boulevard, because you do really have to pay to get your guaranteed view, but it's really up to you. It's whatever floats your boat. But I would say overall 10 out of 10, because it just is, really, from the selection of rides and entertainment, with the sort of Hot Ice show coming back this year, and also the opportunity to walk along the roller coasters and things. That's a great opportunity that you don't see anywhere else. And also the deals that they sometimes do. There's late night riding, which normally has fireworks and things. The introduction of Journey to Hell Freak Nights, with the new horror mazes. They're planning to come back with a bang, hopefully next year, I believe. And also it's just a good experience for anyone. I don't believe that there'll be a certain group of people who can't find something they want to do, because there are things on the promenade, on the piers, in the centre. You don't have to stay in there all the time. And I just think that anyone can go there for a day trip. I don't think anything that anyone says should not put you off. It has affordable and good merchandise that isn't in your face quite a lot of the time. It's something that you could wear on a daily basis. It's not like, oh, I've been here. Oh, look, I've done this. Because a lot of theme parks do that because, it's meant to be a flex that you've been on a certain ride. But I would definitely say get your butt down there. There's some really nice weather going on at the minute. It's very rare that you'll encounter a day where there's rides that you want to go on closed because they have very quick turnaround. Grand National got stuck on the lift hill when I last went, and I was thinking, oh no, it's going to be closed for the rest of the day. 5 minutes, everyone was off, and it was back up and running as it normally would be. And they just turn it around. No stress, no worry. They've got good operation, good health and safety, and a lot of entertainment, meet and greets and things, good restaurants and nice food, affordable food, not to mention as well. So I'd say if you can definitely find a deal as well, I would say go down and have a look. I didn't mention all the rides on there. I didn't mention the Grand Prix ride, and other things among that. So I'd say go on the website, look at stuff, look at the prices, look at the events you want to go to because it's definitely worth it. So yeah, this was just talking. Consider leaving a comment, a like, or a sub. And yeah, bye bye.